Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be in Byron, and it's an honour to be the first speaker today of what I'm sure is going to be some awesome talks and the awesome sharing of ideas. I am a photojournalist. That is my craft. I made a decision in 2008 to travel to Somalia. Now, I have a presentation today which will be photographs that I took for the first 3 days whilst I was in Mogadishu, just to give you some idea of what Mogadishu looked like and what I guess a city that was in war for 18 years actually looks like. And I think the photos that you'll see will show you basically an apocalyptic site. I decided in 2008 I wanted to be a photojournalist. I wanted to be, I guess, a conflict reporter. My mother always said that I had a death wish, and I don't think it was a death wish. It was more about going and, I guess, recording stories of people that were less fortunate than myself. So I made the decision, went to Somalia, and unfortunately put myself in a position, and I put myself through an experience that was incredibly traumatic. Now, to sit up here for 18 minutes and try and tell you about 15 months of what it was like in captivity, which I can tell you was incredibly mentally tough, traumatizing, not just for me, but for my family. But I guess what I want to talk about today is the 25 minutes that actually changed my life in captivity and made me look, I guess, at my life and how I lived my life. 5 months into my experience, I'd basically been having a bit of a pity party, was blaming Amanda, my friend and colleague, for the situation that I was in, was basically dwelling in depression. And at the 5-month mark, we had lost our 3 Somalian guys that were working for us. It was explained to us that they had been handed over to a terrorist organisation and were beheaded. So Amanda and I made a very quick decision to try and escape. I'd had no control for 5 months. I'd made no decisions about my life. I guess I wasn't present and I wasn't conscious. So I was just letting this experience sort of roll over the top of me. We didn't really have a plan. It was, let's just try and get out and let's try and get away from here. The likelihood, both of us knew, was going to be really possibly that we were going to die. We both thought we were going to die in captivity anyhow. They had told us that they were going to get our ransom money and then they were going to execute us. So for me, it was like, I'm actually going to start taking control and ownership of this experience. If I'm going to die, it's going to be on my terms. I spent about 2.5 days digging out a bathroom window, Shawshank Redemption style, with a nail file and a pair of blunt scissors to finally make a hole big enough for both of us to actually get out. Probably half an hour before we left, Amanda and I had been separated for 3 months, so we'd been isolated from each other. We'd been able to communicate as you do as a prisoner. You become very devious. And I'd said to Amanda, now, I just want to make sure 100% that you want to do this, because the likelihood is we're going to get outside and someone's going to shoot us pretty quickly. Had no idea really what was over that window or through that window. And people have said, you know, that was incredibly risky. And I guess I looked at that risk and saw it as a window of opportunity to get my life back and to seize control. We get out of the window, and I've got to say this 25 minutes was probably the most exhilarating 25 minutes I will have in my life and the most terrifying 25 minutes that I will have in my life. We get out of the window, I'm pretty chuffed with myself thinking that we've got away without them knowing. And Amanda says, don't be too excited. The young kid next door has seen us and has screamed something in Somali. So we had about a 10-second head start from our captors. Like a chicken with its head cut off, we start running, have absolutely no idea really where we're going. We had planned to go to the mosque, which we knew was incredibly close to us because we could hear the call to prayer every morning. We managed to get to the mosque and complete pandemonium occurs. There are people in there praying. I walk in, start babbling, both in Arabic and Somali, saying that we're both Muslim. reciting the call to prayer, and people are trying to actually help us, unarmed individuals, and all of a sudden some of our captors with AK-47s come in. King hit me, try and rip Amanda out of the mosque, and these 4 older men who speak English actually protect us, push these guys up against the wall, call an imam and say, if you are in fact Muslim, then we will protect you and we will basically get you to safety. So for a little while there, I was thinking, well, we might have actually done this. We might have got out of here. We're put into to the pulpit of the mosque, and what was such a surreal experience to see at one point guys flood into the mosque, masks covering their faces, all packing AK-47s, to then feel that guilt of this is going to be an absolute massacre, not just of us, but of a lot of innocent people, to get even more surreal, I guess, to then at one stage have a guy walk through the crowd who terrified me, who came up to me, and he said, Assalamu alaikum, and I said, Wa alaikum assalam, and he said, you're Muslim? I said, Wanahay, I'm Muslim, we are Muslim. And he said, how is your Islam? I said, Islam's beautiful. And he came down and kissed me on both cheeks, and he said, you are my brother, this is the gun of the Muslim, I want you to have my gun, and he drops an AK-47 in my lap. And I went, this can't get any more surreal. And I looked at that gun and I went, Jesus, I really wish I have handled one of these before. So I knew how I could take it off safety, and I wonder how many bullets are in it, because I'm basically just going to start spraying people, because I'm pretty sure we're going to die. I guess in an instant my thoughts were then, I handed the gun back to him and I said, I don't want your gun. I don't want to ever know what it's like to kill another human being. Everyone in here is Muslim, and it is against my religion to kill another Muslim person. Probably 2 minutes after that, our head guys of our group, there were 13 in total, came in. We'd stirred up a hornet's nest. Amanda was actually ripped from my side by the hair. She was dragged out of the mosque. I lost sight of her. I was trying to basically back up against a wall. Moments after she was taken outside, I hear one single gunshot and went, she's basically been executed and I'm about to die. 10 seconds later, the guys that had taken Amanda came for me, pistol whipped, punched, kicked to the ground, finally grabbed by my ankles and dragged through the entire mosque, out the front, down concrete stairs, across a concrete courtyard. And it was surprising at how incredibly calm I was at that point. I can remember the 2 thoughts still to this day that went through my head, which was I wish I could call Mum and Dad and explain how sorry I am for the pain and the anguish that I have caused them because of my ambition to basically fulfill a dream. And the other thought was, I wish I could just tell Mum and Dad how much I love them. Was taken basically from the courtyard expecting to die within a matter of seconds, to then be thrown into a vehicle next to Amanda. Look at her, eyes starting to swell up, and she looks at me with this massive smile and she goes, shit, that was intense. And I said, yep, that was pretty intense. And her next words were, Nigel, I'm sorry for making you escape. And I said, look, Amanda, you didn't make me do anything. I chose to do this, like I chose to have that experience of being kidnapped. Now, I guess those consciously created 25 minutes is now how I live my life. From that point on, we were treated like barnyard animals. I was shackled, both of us were shackled. We were separated from each other for the remaining 11 months. I was forced to listen to Amanda being physically tortured for 3 days. I was mentally tortured for those 11 months, as was she. But I guess from my perspective, I took ownership of that experience, and instead of continuing to have a pity party, I decided to embrace this experience and see it as a gift in some respects. I had to change the way I thought about my experience. I had been completely negative. I now had to look at the positive. They took everything, absolutely everything away from me. The only thing that they couldn't take was how I controlled my mind. They were trying to brainwash me because I had converted to Islam. So I really had to use my mind as basically my weapon against these guys. And it was like living with 13 schizophrenics because you never knew what you were going to get from one day to the next. I had to look, I guess, at the way mentally and spiritually I saw myself. For the last 38 years before this experience, I had been walking around dead. I was not present, I was not conscious. I'd been floating through life, basically taking it for an advantage. So I guess I made the decision to make a change within myself. I had, over the next 11 months, a very introspective look into my soul and who I was. And I've got to tell you, there were some things that were pretty ugly that I was not actually proud of, the way that I'd treated people, the way that I'd spoken to people. And I wanted to change those things about me. I was actually disgusted at the person who I was, my ego, my arrogance. And people say that you can't change someone. I say that's rubbish. If you don't like something about yourself, you have the ability to change anything. So I made a conscious decision from the point after we were recaptured, I guess, to come out of that experience a better person, a stronger person, a more empathetic person, less judgmental. Certainly for me, looking at trauma, and trauma is a horrible thing to go through. Every single one of us in this room at some stage in your life will go through a trauma. People say that my trauma was extreme. I don't really agree with that. I think trauma is trauma. I went through something that most of you can't imagine what it is like to be held for 462 days. But I guess I look at it in a way that to lose a husband or a wife or a child would be 10 times more traumatic than what I went through. So I would say to you, when you do face trauma, to embrace it, because it will actually define who you become later in life. Everyone bangs on about post-traumatic stress disorders, those sorts of things, which I was diagnosed when I came home with. It wasn't until about 18 months after I had done a lot of work with psychologists that someone explained to me the phenomenon of post-traumatic growth, which I'd never heard of, and the fact that 75% of us who go through trauma will actually grow from that experience and be a better person, be a kinder, more gentle, more empathetic person. I think also from my experience, I took a lot more positives than the negatives. I had lost basically 15 months of my life. I could have come home, I could have been a victim and wallowed in self-pity. I was pretty sure that my family weren't going to allow me to do that, especially my brother Hamilton, who did say to me when I got home, he said, "Mate, you've got 3 months to get fit and then I'm putting you in a boxing ring. And I am going to pound the living hell out of you because you're an idiot." And I have to agree with him. I was probably a little bit over-eager, a little bit green, didn't really think about the consequences, not just to me, but I guess to my family and my friends. So it is one of those things. I now take responsibility for everything I do, and I say to my nieces and my nephews, every action has a consequence, and you have to be willing to accept those consequences when things do go awry, because it's so much easier to blame someone else, like I had been for the first 5 months blaming Amanda, because I didn't want to take ownership for the things that I had done and the problems that I got into. But saying that, I am so incredibly grateful that I chose to have that experience, to go to Somalia, to try and, I guess, make a difference to a country that the world had basically forgotten about for 18 months. I would say to you to constantly look and dream big, and don't be afraid to embrace those dreams and to go out and throw everything at it, because at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? You can get kidnapped. But I think we all live in this comfortable grey zone. We look up and we go, that looks great up there, that's where I want to be, and we look down and we go, we don't want to be there because that's basically the trauma end of the scale. But we sit in this small little grey scale and say, this is really comfortable. That's where I want to be, but I'm just too terrified. Don't be terrified, don't be, I guess, driven by fear, because that up there that looks scary is actually your opportunity, and it is when you take those opportunities that, You look at any entrepreneur in Australia, that most people would go, geez, that was a risk, and he would say, well, that's your risk, that's my opportunity, that's why I've got $1 million, and that's why you got nothing, because you're too scared to do something about it. So don't be afraid. Don't be driven by fear so much that you sit there and you walk around dead. Create your own dream. Do not create someone else's dream. You get one chance at life. I've been given a second chance at life. That is how I live my life now. I'm not going to punch a clock from 9 to 5, making money for someone else. And it's not about making money, because at the end of the day, money makes your life easier. It doesn't enrich your life. The thing that's really going to enrich your life is your family and your friends that you surround yourself with. They are the people that will love you unconditionally. They are the ones that are going to be there when the proverbial hits the fan. And it does hit the fan, and it's beautiful that you have those people there to support you and to look after you. So cherish your family, don't neglect them. Do the things you want in life, because life is so short. And I would certainly say, I heard a great saying the other day, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Live in the present. Be in the reality of right here and right now, because what happens tomorrow doesn't really matter. It's about being here today. So thank you all very much for being here. Like I said, it's an honour to always speak at TED. Enjoy the day, and I look forward to speaking to some of you, if not all of you, if I can get around today. Be happy. Namaste.